Get Pucked. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Get Pucked podcast. Here with you again this time, Dave, Vito, myself, Matt, and we thank you for being here. And as customary, we're going to dive right into it, gentlemen. So, this is the first time we're getting together again since the trade deadline. Obviously, we discussed, and of course, my camera has gone fuzzy. We discussed in the reactionary video about the Sherratt trade. So we won't really go over that one again. And if you haven't caught that one, anybody listening, you can go and catch that one on any of our YouTube or Facebook channels. You'll be able to listen through that one again. But quickly, gents, I just want to go over what your feelings are about the other ones. So we had Lehkonen, unfortunately, traded. Good. And Dave, you're going to be the first one to talk about this one. To Colorado for Justin Barron, former first-round pick, Justin Barron, and a 2024 second. We also had our good buddy Kulak was traded, and he goes to Edmonton for a William Lagesson and a second in 2022 and a seventh in 2024. And finally, the Hamburglar, short but sweet, was traded to New Jersey for Nate Schnarr, who's currently at the Laval Rocket. So, Dave, starting with you, my man, what do you think? What were the returns? What do you grade the Hughes-Gorton first trade deadline?
Pretty much an A+. I mean, this is as good as it gets for any general manager coming in to a team like this. I mean, the Lehkonen trade was an absolute steal. I don't understand how he did it. Like, I don't get it. I don't understand how there's a market for that. I don't understand how Artturi Lehkonen not only goes for a second round pick, which I thought was probably overpaying just that in itself, but to get a prospect like Justin Barron, top prospect is well. I mean, apparently the Avalanche soured on him, but still, absolutely. I mean, there's still value there. Even if they soured on him internally, nobody knows that externally, right? There's no other general managers have to know that you don't like this guy. It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. It's a steal there. You go to Edmonton. I don't know. They just. I'd love to hear be a fly on the wall of that conversation. Hey, here's Brett Kulak, a fifth, sixth defenseman. Maybe some nights can't even get in the lineup. Take a second round pick. On top of that, take this. Okay, whatever. The player that was thrown in. Okay, whatever. I can deal with it. And then a seventh round pick on top of that. Like how? What happened there? And then Andrew Hammond, whatever. That's a toss-up. Nate Schnarr, it's an AHL move. It's a depth move. It doesn't matter. That's whatever. But those two trades alone, and then not to talk about what happened with Ben Sherratt and Tyler Toffoli, I think this is an absolute stud of a trade deadline for Kent Hughes and Jeff. I mean, we don't speak about Jeff Gordon anymore, but props to him if he was
there. I'm sure he was in there. Yeah,
process, but that was disgusting, to be honest. It was amazing. You couldn't ask for better as a Habs fan, I think. And if you do, well, then you're delusional.
You're probably at that point delusional. Yeah, I would have to agree. Vito, what do you think? How did it go?
They checked all the boxes. I mean, would I have been disappointed if they kept Lehkonen? I wouldn't have been disappointed, but I felt like if you knew you were going to have trouble re-signing him because maybe his contract demands are going to be in and around the $4.5 million mark, and you already have Armia and Byron who's eating up 3.4 apiece, then yeah, you look at it and say, okay, they moved Lehkonen and they got a great package. I said it in previous episodes. I've said it talking to friends. I've said it to you guys. If they were going to get a player and they had enough first rounders or enough picks, they needed to address the right defense prospect pool. They needed to, and they did that by getting Justin Barron. Now, that doesn't mean that they still can't go and draft and acquire other right-handed defensemen. I mean, if you look at the depth chart on the right side defense at the Montreal Canadiens organization, you're pretty much looking at Barron and Mailloux at this point. And if you want to throw in Josh Brook, you can. But I mean, he gets hurt all the time. So for now, I'm very happy that Montreal's now loaded up with picks. I'm happy. The Kulak deal, I mean, Dave pretty much nailed it there. I never saw Kulak, and the advanced analytics people are going to want to crucify us. But I never saw Kulak being more than a fifth, sixth, seventh defenseman. Is it possible that he could have a good night and the coach jumps him up the lineup throughout during a game? Yeah, but that's circumstantial. But at the same time,
I think he's a 5'6".
Yeah, I would say he's a 5'6". He's still young enough to prove himself and maybe show his value to a team. But I did not expect the return that we got for Brett Kulak. I did not. When we were talking about Brett Kulak being moved, we figured, okay, a 4th, a 5th round pick. You're coming at me with a conditional 2nd, Lagesson, and a 7th round pick. That's just highway robbery, in my opinion, and that's mainly because Edmonton is so desperate. If Edmonton was going to give that package up, ask yourselves this, okay? Let's say they would have reached out to Montreal for Jake Allen, and they gave you that exact same package for Jake Allen. You would have been like, okay, we got a 2nd, we got a player, and we got a 7th for Jake Allen. Instead, we got that for Brett Kulak, and we still have Jake Allen.
I mean, that's extremely true.
Dave would have been very happy with the returns for Jake Allen if that were the case. I would have been underwhelmed, to be honest with you. Not grossly underwhelmed, but I would have been a little underwhelmed. But I definitely have to agree with you. I think in the same vein, I think Kulak is a 5-6 on a good team, and he's very serviceable. But I mean, there's something that happens. Dave mentioned this before. Something around trade deadline where even the most cautious GMs just throw caution to the wind, man. And they just throw things. Imagine being on the phone and being like, yeah, we want Kulak from you. And you're like, no problem. I want a 2nd. They're like, okay, we got to give you a player back because of the money. And they're like, okay, well, maybe this guy, that guy. And they take Lagesson, whatever. Maybe he doesn't stick around, doesn't matter. And then on top of that, you got him, you're like, throw in another pick. And they're like, oh, shit. Okay, fine. For Kulak, fine, we'll do it.
Even with Lagesson, when you think about Lagesson, okay, he's a 26-year-old guy who the Montreal Canadiens still control his contract beyond this year. He's still an RFA. There's a way for him to become a UFA and all that, but I mean, he's still an RFA. That's a controllable contract. Yes. At the end of the day, it was great. And if you want to, we've already spoken about the Sherrod trade we had the next day, but it was honestly, if I have to give a grade, it's definitely an A.
I think without question.
It could probably even say an A+ because they ended up getting a 2023 first-round pick. And Dave, in past episodes, gave me a hard time saying, you want to trade that person and you want to dictate what pick you're going to get? Remember that line, Dave? We got it, man. We got the 2023 pick.
I'm on record saying that hockey general managers are the stupidest general managers of any sport, really. Okay?
Your child agrees.
Your child agrees. Your child agrees right on cue.
Right on there by Chloe, but
listen, I think we all agree it was a pretty stellar, if not beyond anybody's expectations for a trade deadline, and we couldn't be happier as a fan base. I challenge any other fan base out there whose team is currently sitting dead last in their respective sports to be as happy as the current Montreal Canadiens fans are today. It's the most surreal thing.
We have something to look forward to. The future actually looks bright. Things are getting exciting. You're looking at the teams actually playing well. If I'm not mistaken, since February, the Montreal Canadiens, at the pace that they're playing, they would be like in the top 5 or top 6 in the NHL. Just on their win percentage.
I think in the conference,
or in the Atlantic,
the NHL.
In the conference,
or the Atlantic.
But either way,
whatever.
That's how well they're playing. Is that you look at it and say, okay, they're last place this year, or they're in the bottom 3, whatever. And if this is what we're going to see going forward, and this is the type of hockey that's going to be exciting, and they're going to be a team that pushes for a playoff spot, playing exciting hockey, I'm stoked.
Yeah.
Speaking of future, I just want to dive because I want a couple of things to cover here. But speaking of future, since you mentioned it, Jordan Harris. Oh, is he signing? Is he not signing? Is he signing? Is he not signing? He signed. We can put that to bed. It's done. It's over with. My question to you, gentlemen, is what do you want to see happen with him? He is currently not AHL eligible to go for the playoffs, so he can come and play some games with the Habs. Should he get 1 or 2 reps in? Should they try to keep him around for the next 17 games? Because now they got Barron, they got him. Granted, they don't play the same sides. And they got and Lagesson as well, I believe, is in there too. They have a bunch of other bodies that can go. So is it worth putting him in there now right away for as often as they can, or should they give a small sample, a little taste, get him in there for 1 or 2 games, and then leave him till next season to get to camp? Vito, start with you, baby. What you think? What you think?
You signed them to an entry-level contract of 2 years. We're burning this year. Might as well play him, get your money's worth, and let him get the experience he needs to get. And next year, after seeing whatever sample size of the 17 games that are remaining, 17 or 18 games, if you see that hey, he's still not ready, okay, fine. Either way, he got some experience. Next year, send him to Laval. But play him. There's no you're looking at on the left side. He's versatile. He could play on the right side at times, but he's on the left side. And you're looking on our left side is Edmondson, Romanov, and Schuneman. All have been great. They've been playing well. It's hard to take any of them off. But on the right
Well,
side,
he's not taking Eddie or Romanov's spot. Let's
no,
be
he's
real.
not.
So
He's
it'd
not.
be Schuenemann.
It'd be Schuenemann, but at the same time, Schuenemann's been playing well. So when you look at the right
Yeah.
side, you're looking at David Savard, Barron. So you might interchange with Barron every now and then. That's possible. And then you have Chris Weidman. Chris Weidman's been playing well for the Montreal Canadiens, but at the end of the day, if you know that you're not going to re-sign Chris Weidman at the end of the season, then you might as well give the ice time to the player that you're going to keep for the foreseeable future.
That's fair. Dave?
Yeah, I 100% agree with him. What's the point of having a guy in here like Jordan Harris if you're not going to play him? I don't see the logic in benching him or giving him 2 games here, not using him at all, and then banking next year. Like, what you have to make a decision at one point on what you're going to do next year. Is Jordan Harris penciled in for that spot? How are you going to know if you don't play him? You got to play him. You got to see what you have in him, and I'd play him every single night, unless you see he's really struggling or if he's having a rough go at it. Fine,
even on his offside.
Yeah,
like,
I don't care.
Like
Put them both, man.
Right. Yeah,
pressure them both, man. Schoonemann's playing both sides, right? You've seen him play both sides. People are doing it. You got to see how much these players can bend. You can't just go with what you know. The hype is fine. To have the hype on Jordan Harris is fine, but eventually you have to see what you got, right? He's a 3rd round pick. Let's not forget this, right? A lot of people, because he's been hyped for all these years, a lot of people are valuing him. You got to make sure that this guy is an actual NHL player and he can actually, track in your top 6 defensive core. So you need to play him and you need to see what he can do against NHL talent. I'm a firm believer in that. So I want to see it. I want to see him play the rest of it. I'd like to see Justin Barron as much as possible. And then you can go forward from there. I think they have the perfect coach for it, right? Marty St. Louis, you saw him, he put Justin Barron on in overtime. He's a guy who's not gonna make you feel bad if you make a mistake. He's not gonna make you, sit on the bench. And if he happens to give you ice time and you make a mistake, you're not gonna feel that way. You're gonna be happy with what you have, and you're gonna know that you could play your game and try to prove yourself. And I think that it's better for everybody involved if Jordan Harris and Justin Barron get as much ice time as humanly possible.
Play the kids, right? At the end of the day, just play them.
I don't disagree. I mean, to give my 2 cents on it, again, you kind of touched on exactly where I would have followed up my question, Vito, which is to say, in order to play these kids, you have to sit veterans. Sort of. I mean, maybe Schuenemann's not a veteran, but he's earned his spot in the top 6 right now, and he's playing well. You'd have to sit him. You'd have to sit Weidman, who's also playing well. Now, these guys are like, is it the right thing to do to them to bring these kids in, even though you own these kids now and they're going to be there next year, no problem. Weidman might not be, and he's going to try to work another contract. And I'm hearing a lot of talks that people won't be that upset if Weidman does come back. Schuenemann, he was a great surprise. Is he going to start Laval next year? Is he going to earn a spot? Like, there's a lot of different opportunities. But like Dave's saying, you want to get these guys in there and see what they can do against the best. Putting them in Laval and watching them dominate is fun, and they come up and stuff, but you have this opportunity now in a little bit of a less pressured environment to let them go out there and try their hand in an NHL game. It just, is it going to work itself out? Or do you have the flexibility to do these things? Will the other guys understand that they're being sat for these kids to make an impression? Yes or no? And that's kind of why I was like,
Matt, whether they understand or not, and I'm sure they do, is that Montreal's going a certain direction, and it seems like the plan has been conveyed to everybody. This is what we're going to do. This is what we're trying to do. We're going for futures. We're going for kids. Marty St. Louis, everybody seems to be trusting what he has to say and how he's coaching. So if they decide that game that, hey, no, Jordan Harris is going to play and Weidman's going to sit down, then that's what it's going to be.
Game on, game off, I understand. But I mean, if you're trying to maximize your sample size of seeing what Harris can do, then he's going to be in there the next 17 games.
Yeah, because what's the alternative, Matt? The alternative is you play him 3 games, 4 games, looks good, and then you pencil him in onto the top 6, and then he plays 4 games in the exhibition season next year and chokes, or he's having a bad day, or he's having this, and then you don't really get to see what do you really have in him. This is the exact perfect time to see. You have 18 games. It's not 4 games. It's not 5 games. It's not 3 games. It's 18 games to see what you can do and what you have in Jordan Harris. You have to figure that out, man. You have to go.
I don't disagree.
It's going to
interesting.
It's going to affect everything. It's going to affect whether you go after a John Klingberg. Well, I mean, they should go after a John Klingberg anyways, but whether you patch that defensive core in the free agency, or if you make via trade, you can't just say we're going to put Jordan Harris there, and then what happens when the season starts and it's too late to go get who you need, right? You need to figure out what you have.
I don't disagree. Well said, gents. Well said. Speaking of another youngster, this is a little bit more of a, I don't know, maybe aspirational on my part of asking the question, saying it the way I'm going to say it. But by the end of the season, does Cole Caulfield do enough to earn a nomination for the Calder? Not necessarily win. I know he was in a deep, deep, deep hole, so I'm not holding my breath for him winning anything. But will he get a nomination?
Yes, and he could win he could win the Calder outright.
God damn. There's your take.
I'm not kidding, man. It's not even a hot take. He's a guy. Look what he's doing.
I don't know
look
about
what he's
that.
doing in the past 20 games, man.
Listen, I think it's crazy, but I don't know if I think he was put in such a hole. I mean, he'd have to continue his pace and even pick up in order, because it's very much about points. As much as it shouldn't be, it is very much about a point thing.
He's 14 points back of Michael Bunting. Okay, 14.
Yep.
It's not that much. 14 points back, and he has 18 games to do it, and he's on a point-per-game pace, whereas Michael Bunting's kind of slowing down right now. And Bunting's playing with Austin Matthews and Mitch Marner. Okay, no offense.
And he's 26. I know the whole story.
Nah, I don't care about the age, man. A rookie's a rookie. I'm not a big believer in, like...
Okay.
No.
Okay.
You know?
I am a little bit. I don't think it's right. I think Calder, you should be cut off at X age, in addition to being a rookie, in my opinion. But listen.
Why? Why? Just out of curiosity.
Well, because there is a difference in terms of not just from a player's perspective. You both come into the league at the same time, sure, but Michael Bunting has so many more years to develop, to be around hockey, to be playing at a higher level than playing college. Just the general being older and more capable of dealing with the mental aspect of the game as well is probably something that adds to I'm forgetting the word what I want to say, but experience.
But it's the Calder's not a pro hockey trophy. It's not a Hall of Fame trophy. It's an NHL trophy. It's for the rookie in the NHL. If it's your first year in the NHL, you should qualify.
That's why he's there. Yeah,
it's circumstantial again, right? Because like Panarin came in late because he had contract obligations overseas. Kaprizov, same things. Like, are you going to penalize them because they had to stick to their contract in Russia and then came here and whatever?
I didn't tell them to sign a contract in Russia. And yes, I would penalize them. If it were me and they said, Matt, you get to make the Calder rules, what do you want to do? I'd put a hard cap on. You have to be a rookie and you have to be under the age of 23 or 22 or whatever.
I don't
like that to me is a rookie, a true rookie, the best young player in the league. It's not the best player that just broke into the NHL, even though he played 3 years in professional hockey in Russia.
So just curious. So Cole Caulfield, let's say, okay. So Cole Caulfield, he's 21, right? I believe. Okay, so let's say he didn't come into the NHL yet. He hasn't come into the NHL yet. Dom Duchamp hated him. Started the season in Laval. So now next year he's 22, gets injured. He's 23, never has a chance of Rookie of the Year, according to you. That's fair.
Well, fair or not fair, it's fair for everybody.
It's his first year in the NHL. He's a rookie.
Well, okay, and he could be a fantastic. If maybe he's clipping at that kind of amazing pace.
It's not like
I'm not saying it's bigger or not. I'm simply saying that I find it, and not because it's a Leaf. I don't want anybody to come at me being like, "Oh, you're bitching because Michael Bunting's a Leaf." I couldn't care if he was still with Arizona. It doesn't matter to me. The fact is, he's a 26-year-old player, and he's gonna win the Calder.
That's ageism.
I don't ageism. I just find it. I don't find it in my opinion.
Like you right now.
Well, listen. Melnick is welcome to come on the Get Puck podcast and make his opinions known.
He'll never come on now. But anyways, to answer the question, I mean, he's also only 6 goals away from Michael Bunting. Also, you know what I mean? Yeah. And he has 18 games to do it. Or is it 17 now? Because
it's 17 now.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm still on my weekend.
If he doesn't jump into the top 3 in points for rookies, they're not even going to nominate him because there's so many players ahead of him right now. That's the problem. The NHL works, and we've seen this. When was the last time somebody who was in the middle of the pack won the award or was even nominated? I think Drew Doughty one season for the Norris. But other than that, it's usually like the people who are in the top 3, top 4 are the ones that are getting nominated and get the votes. So, the argument or the discussion here is whether he will get nominated. So I don't think he's going to get nominated unless he makes a big leap and gets within a few points behind the first overall player in the points in the point leaders for the Calder.
The third right now is Trevor Zegras, and he has 47 points. Cole Caulfield has 34 points. So that's 13 points in 17 games to catch up. I mean, it's going to be hard. Don't get me wrong, because Zegras will also be putting up points.
Yeah,
but you have to factor in the fact that he's having. If he puts up, let's say he puts up those 13 points, and now you have all these points in a small span of games. I think you have to give him.
Well, he might get a few more votes, or maybe there's some of the people are actually who actually do the voting might end up voting for him because of what he's done since Ducharme's gone. But at the same time,
because you can't just look at points, man. To me, it doesn't make sense to just look at points. You got to look at the circumstances. You got to look at it. If a guy comes in and then 40,
disagree with that, sir.
You do. Okay, so let's say. A guy comes in with 30 games left and scores 3 goals a game for 30 straight games. Scores 90 goals in 30 games. Doesn't matter because he didn't. You know what I mean? Like.
Okay, well, hold on a second. If someone does that, fine. I retract my statement. You win the Calder. You win MVP. You win everything.
Even on a smaller scale, if someone comes in for the last 40 games of the season,
but he didn't come in the last 40 games of the season and torch like he's torching. He played a whole first of the season and had 1 goal in 36 games, and people aren't going to care that it was Ducharme. They're not going to care.
I think they will.
Maybe some will, but I don't think enough are going to care that it's going to tilt and say, "Look at what this kid could have done."
The hockey writers are all about storyline, right? Is why Alex Ovechkin got nominated on an all-star team for a position he didn't even play, because people don't care about this. They just want the storylines in there.
Which is fair. And we are talking about, I mentioned nomination because we mentioned Michael Bunting right after, and I don't think Michael Bunting's going to win the Calder. I think it's going to go to Mo Seider, personally.
That's interesting.
I think he's going to win the Calder, and I mean that's a whole other thing. So everybody else is playing second.
He deserves it.
Yeah, I think he does.
The guy is the Terminator on skates. He's like a modern day Victor Hedman, just a bit
exactly.
shorter.
So in all fairness to that, I mean he would be my pick for the Calder now. So everybody's fighting for a second place, in my opinion. And will Caulfield end up with more votes than Bunting towards the end of the season? It's possible. Will Zegras beat them both? Maybe. Lucas Raymond is still in the mix as well. There's a whole bunch of good rookies this year.
I like that. That's confidence. Okay, Michael Bunting has a Toronto market bankrolling his nomination. Okay, I struggle to see a world where Michael Bunting doesn't seriously have at least a 50-50 chance of winning.
It might be up.
I don't think Seider's as big of a lock as you think.
But well, listen, my belief. So anyways, my point is, it's my pick, of course. I think the pick that's echoed by a lot of people as well. But you're right. The Toronto media machine is a big monster. And if they get all behind one person, fine. Maybe it'll be Bunting. I'm simply saying we're all in agreement then that no matter what, Caulfield is going to get some love for the Calder. Might not win, but he's going to get some love.
He'll get some votes. He'll get some votes. Like at the end, once the awards are given out and you see the percentages or whatever, you're going to see Caulfield's going to have some votes.
Excellent. All right. Very good.
Matt, I just want you to know that you're not you don't qualify for a Rookie of the Year on the Get Puck podcast, eh?
Oh, and I don't even get upset about it because I understand the rules. I get the rules.
You say so.
Speaking of another young man, and I believe today's his birthday. At 27 years old, Jonathan Drouin has been the topic of a couple conversations lately. Specifically, one that was brought up with our good friends of the show, Marco D'Amico, mentioned on TSN 690 this weekend on the weekend game plan. In fact, with Matthew Ross and our own Dave tried to do it. That he believes Jonathan Drouin has played his last game as a Montreal Canadien. He is out for the rest of the season. He has 1 year left on a contract of $5.5 million. And he doesn't believe he's going to be back. Something's going to happen. And my question to you, gentlemen, is this. A, do you believe he'll be a Hab starting next season? And if not, what is happening with him? Where's he going? What's going to happen with him? Retirement, I heard some people mutter. Trade and flip for another contract. Another person mentioned, I don't know where I heard retirement from. Maybe we'll start with Vito then. I don't know where somebody mentioned that. But go ahead, Vito. Tell me what you think is going to happen with Drouin.
His value can't be any lower than it is now. So I don't think he's going to be a Montreal Canadien to start the season. I am one of those that believe the experiment is over. You could claim it that Montreal lost that trade or Bergevin lost that trade. It's time to move on from it. But there's when you're looking at the left side on the Montreal Canadiens right now, Jonathan Drouin technically would be your second line left winger because Cole Caulfield's playing first, right?
Yeah.
And at the same time, when I'm looking at Drouin, both his wrists are messed up. I don't think he's ever handled the Montreal market very well, in my opinion. He's had some certain health issues. I just think that it's time to move on. Let him have the opportunity to go somewhere else. And I know, and if I'm going to prepare all the listeners and viewers here, if they do manage to trade Jonathan Drouin, don't expect anything crazy anymore. That's my opinion. That's my belief. Don't expect anything crazy. You'll get something back. If they buy him out, they'll actually save about $3.5 million, give or take, on the cap for him. But I don't think they're going to buy him out unless they really need that cap space to do so. They're going to try to move him first, and we've seen now that Kent Hughes could move anybody for just about everything. So
maybe the fans should be excited. Maybe the fans should expect a lot.
But the only way, in my opinion, that Jonathan Drouin starts the season with the Montreal Canadiens is if they believe they can get his value up to a point that it makes him worth trading.
So he's okay. Go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. So, man, I don't think it's that much of a lock that he doesn't start the season next year in Montreal. First off, I still want to see him under Marty St. Louis. I know technically we did, but I want to see him for real with a stretch under Marty St. Louis. I want to see him get a chance healthy. You know, maybe his wrists, maybe there was an issue. Maybe the surgery is going to actually revamp something. I don't know.
Both wrists, man.
I'm willing to give it a chance, man. I always saw the talent in Jonathan Drouin, and I understand that there's bad will here and there's criticism here and people hate him and people love to drag on him. And I just think that if you could actually get him to play his game and work on his strengths, you could get something out of him. And I don't think, as I said, his value is low. So what's the point of dealing him? What's the point? Okay, you get that cap space back, I guess. But I guess it just depends on what they plan on doing this year. Next year. And again, it's going to be the first free agent signing of the offseason is really going to be telling, I think, to where this organization is going. But I don't think it's 100% that we saw the last of Jonathan Drouin. And buying him out is an option. Sure. I could live with a buyout for sure. And I thought that was surprising because I hadn't heard that before Marco brought it up to me. I hadn't heard that at all. And I think that's an interesting option. I just think that maybe there's a little bit more value still left in Jonathan Drouin, and there's a bit of time to salvage it. And with Marty St. Louis in place, I think that's the coach to really do it. And you just kind of got to look at his health and kind of evaluate where he's at and go from there. But I'd like to see him get another shot at it. And I know people are going to hate me for it, but
would I be bothered if he starts the season and he's there? No, I wouldn't be bothered, but I would be bothered if all of a sudden he starts the season and he's out for another 3 months, 4 months.
Oh yeah, well that's it. You got to evaluate his health. If the health is an issue, man, maybe you got to move on. But
or if all of a sudden you're seeing, he's stepping away from the game again for whatever reason, and maybe it does have to do with the Montreal market, the pressure, whatever the case may be. And if that's the case, then for his sake, and for our sake, move him.
I have a feeling that we're turning a corner in terms of pressure in Montreal, and I know it's going to sound weird to say this.
No, I get what you're saying.
We're about to enter a window where the pressure in Montreal is going to be at an all-time low, right? I think that people are willing to give Kent Hughes, Jeff Gordon, Marty St. Louis about a year or two leeway to see how they can deal with this. And they're going to live with the growing pains and they're going to live with the young people coming in, the young players. And so if there's any time to put a guy who doesn't do well under high pressure situations into a Montreal market, I think it's right now. I think that everything is aligned perfectly with Marty St. Louis in place, with the pressure being taken off. I think it's perfect storm for Jonathan Drouin. Will his health, will his mental health, will his physical health, and will whatever has been blocking him in terms of becoming a good player stand in his way.
That's a great point on what you said. I think the pressure is going to be at its all-time low. I think it'll even be for about 2-3 years, to be honest.
Depending how much of a disaster.
Yeah, I think there's a good portion of the fan base I think there's a good portion of the fan base that's accepting a rebuild of some kind or a retool, a transformation, whatever whatever the case may be. If we get to year 5 with Gordon and Hughes and we're still in the bottom 3 in the NHL, it's going to be a different story.
Look, just look for example for yesterday, right? Everybody's so excited. Oh, they got a point against New Jersey, 3 points out of 4. They got outshot 51-18 by the Leafs, and they lost to New Jersey, who suck. So New Jersey's a terrible team.
Yep.
But everyone's still happy. Everyone's still
because it was
entertaining. It was entertaining hockey.
Imagine it's not only the entertaining hockey though. It's because it's what's happening in the meantime. You had Justin Barron playing. You have Cole Caulfield playing. Like, fine, the entertainment factor is for sure a factor, but it's everything, right? Fans are done. Like Marc Bergevin had this like stranglehold of negativity, I find, on the Canadiens, and I think that it's finally clear. There was like a fog with Marc Bergevin, and I hate to say it, but that's the truth, and I think that it's come off. And now, how long will it last is the question. 2-3 years? Could be, but the time is now.
The time is now. Speaking of the time is now, final question for you guys. With the draft coming up, we know that there's 2 first-round picks. We know it's very likely that the Canadiens' own pick is going to be in the top 5. Hopefully it's the first, but it'll be top 5 pretty much guaranteed at this point. The other pick is Calgary's pick. And that could fall really in a wide variety of different picks. It can be, 26, 27. It could be 30, 31. Who knows, right? It depends how well they do.
Right now, as it stands, it's 29th.
Okay, so 29th. So my question is this. Kent Hughes has a son. His name is Jack Hughes, not to be confused with superstar Jack Hughes of the Devils, but this gentleman's name is Jack Hughes too. And people are projecting this Jack Hughes to be a late first-round pick. Some people are suggesting that whether or not he's still available at 28, 29, whatever, if Kent Hughes takes him, it would be a bad look. There'd be nepotism, there'd be this, it's uncomfortable. He maybe should have been 32, 33. They're taking him at 28. Oh, they took him ahead of where he should be, blah, all that kind of crap. Would you guys have a problem if the Montreal Canadiens drafted Kent Hughes' son with their second first-round pick? Dave?
That's a tough question because I've seen some mock drafts where he goes 26th or 27th, so, and some that he doesn't even get drafted in the first round. Again, I don't know. I don't know. I haven't seen him play. I have no idea what kind of player is. It would depend on the scouting and whatnot. It just seems as though when you have a pool of all these huge players, like there's a huge pool of players, all with talent, all with like, why go get that player that's going to be like, maybe he's going to bring, like, unless he's like an absolute steal and an absolute stud, kind of like Logan Mailloux, right? Logan Mailloux, you could have drafted anyone at that spot. Probably got a good player in terms of like his talent skills, right? So I get it. I wasn't a fan of it. I don't think it should have been done, but I get it. I don't know about drafting Jack Hughes. To me, he seems to be a guy who's in the early second round. Maybe wait to see if he drops to you when you have your second round pick or whatnot. But I would probably...
You'd steer away.
I'd probably steer away unless it's like an absolute, like, wow, he's really the best player available.
Well, and so that's exactly why I asked the question, right? Because I saw the same sort of mock drafts that have him anywhere between 25 and upper echelon of the second. So a lot of people are going to suggest, oh, he's a second round player. Some other players are going to say, well, if the Habs are drafting 25 or 26 and he's there, he's the best player, and it makes sense, even though he's his son. So is it like basically it's how you feel? So you think you should steer away? That's not a problem. Vito, should they?
I don't know if he should steer away. Sorry, it's
go
such
on,
a tough thing
clarify.
Because what happens if he is a stud and he's great? Like it's just such a tough decision, right?
And that's the best part about it.
I'm gonna go back to, I think that they should probably steer away, but I wouldn't hate on them if they picked him.
Okay.
Even if he sucks, even if he ended up never playing a game in the NHL, I wouldn't hate on him for picking.
From what I remember, the last time the Montreal Canadiens organization drafted a player because their father was part of the administration was Daniel Odette, and that didn't turn out very well. Now, not every player is the same, but given the fact that Montreal Canadiens do have a very early second round pick, right now it's somewhere in, I think, 33, 34, 35, around there. If Jack Hughes is still available in the second round, you can go for it, but I would probably stay away, not only for the Montreal Canadiens' sake, for Kent Hughes' sake, for Jack Hughes' sake, because at the end of the day, his father's there. You don't want that kind of image or that even the thought. So I would just probably stay away. Plus, there's other prospects that I think that they could benefit by drafting. Probably cover the defensive side again, especially if in the top 3 is going to be a forward. You have Tristan Luneau that's going to be there, that's available as a defenseman. I would probably go there. When you look at Jack Hughes, he's basically a versatile center winger, right winger. He could play in all 3 of those positions. But it's like you said, right? Certain mock drafts have him in the second round. Certain ones have him in the first. I don't think Montreal's in the position to take certain gambles right now. You need to.
Well, one thing for sure, we know that they came out and said that they're not going to draft organizational need. They're going to draft the best players available. They've outright said that. So if in their own drafting, Jack Hughes is a lower tier first rounder and he's still available by the time they get it, then they're going to do it simply because that was their ethos going into it. Just to clarify, you're saying that if the Habs drafted him at 28, you would be but if the Habs draft them at 32, you're okay. Not 32, 34.
Well, the reason why I'm thinking that way is because when you look at mock drafts, they either have him in the late first or they have him in the early second. So he's somewhere there. He's somewhere in that block of players. But ahead of him, there are players that no matter what mock draft you look at, they're in the first round, whether it's the late or whether it's the mid, whatever the case may be. So I rather go for somebody who's consistently in those mock drafts, whether it's and other scouts and whoever who I've put up their own mock drafts have all have certain players in those as a lock for first round picks, than somebody who can be in the first but probably in the second. I'd prefer going with something that's along those lines.
Right.
I'm going to go more consistency.
You're entitled to do it. I say
among
they absolutely
many other
take
reasons.
Him. Absolutely, they take him. 100%. If he's available at the time that they draft at the end of the first round, he walks up, Kent Hughes, with a big smile. The Montreal Canadiens are happy to announce, drafting from wherever the hell he was playing in college, Jack Hughes, and he comes up, big hug. The family's 100% is happening.
No matter what, he's not playing with the Montreal Canadiens next season if he is drafted.
No,
he's committed to Northeastern, and then who knows how long his development takes before he even hits the NHL, if he hits the NHL.
I will tell you this much though, gents. If he is available, and the Habs and Calgary goes a little bit deep, because if Calgary gets bumped in the first round, I think their pick is something like what? They become like high 20s.
Who?
If Calgary gets bumped right away from the playoffs, like round 1,
they're 29. It'll go based on the standings.
How's that?
No, it goes with how you're eliminated.
Yeah, they'd be high 20s.
Yeah. Oh, okay, a little bit higher.
Yeah. If that happens, I can be a little bit like
21, 22.
I'd be a little surprised. But if they go far and you get a low first round, you get 28, 29, for sure they're taking them. For sure. But money in the bank.
All right. I mean, look, if I ever become general manager of the Montreal Canadiens and Chloe ends up becoming quite a good hockey player, I would draft her. So,
as a father, I would draft my kids, and I do one of these to anybody who says otherwise.
You know what? I don't have any kids yet, but if I was a general manager and my kid's really good, I wouldn't draft them.
You wouldn't?
I don't. I want my kid to make their own path.
You can still make your own path.
Under daddy's supervision. No.
You know what? We'll have a whole podcast dedicated to parenting and parenting aspirations another time. Gentlemen, thank you very much. Everybody else out there listening, again, everybody who listens, we appreciate you, and we would very much appreciate if you like, subscribe, share. If you think this content would be enjoyable to anybody else that might not be listening to it now, we would very much appreciate for you guys to pass us along. Take a look on our social medias. For the next episode, we're going to announce that when that comes up. I also believe possibly we might have the first episode of the ABC that we're going to do. The Anything But Canadians is going to possibly make an appearance this week. So definitely stay tuned for that. And as always, me, Matt, Dave, Vito, we all say thank you and say this was Get Pucked.
Thanks.
Get pucked.